Some good news and some not so good news. I've been meaning to update you, but I just wanted to wait until we heard back from the police so I could condense it all into one video. You know, the wheelchair was pretty beaten up after the incident. The entire frame had bent in, and they were able to sort of get it back most of the way. It's still slightly bent. The biggest problem was really just the wheel. The wheel was pretty badly damaged. The pin that you press in to like lock it into the frame, that whole thing had been, well, part of it was bent and then the tip of it had been broken off entirely. So that was why that wasn't working. I mean, I have a slight camber, whatever it's called, on my wheels. It's like this, but the right wheel had been pushed in, so it was like this. And they replaced the pin, thankfully. They actually had an older model of the same exact wheelchair I had that wasn't usable necessarily, but they were able to salvage parts from it, so that was really nice, and everything was covered by insurance, thankfully. They said we were really lucky that there was an official police report, because if that was not the case, then we would have been paying for everything out of pocket. So they fixed the pin on the wheel. The hand rims are still pretty bent. There's one part where it sort of dips in. It's a little awkward, but I can adjust. And they did fix it as much as they could, because although the pin was bent, part of the underneath of the frame where everything attached was kind of broken as well. They fixed it as much as they could. That's what they told me. They made some adjustments, and so now the wheel is kind of like this. It's still angled in a little more than I'm comfortable with, but it works. It's a little awkward because I have to push harder on one side than I do the other, and that's really awkward. It's taken some getting used to. They did a really good job fixing it. They did say that the frame, it's never gonna run the way it used to. There's really nothing they can do about that. It's probably always gonna pull to one side. It's probably always gonna be a lot more difficult to push. But they did say that because the police report is on file, that if anything, like, you know, if it's okay for, you know, say 3 months and then 3 months later it falls apart, that we're covered, which is really nice. We're not covered to replace anything because they deemed it as safe, even though it's difficult to use. It's considered safe, so they won't replace anything. They said if it becomes too much trouble or if it's just too difficult, then we can always replace the wheel, and insurance wouldn't cover that. But my dad, after seeing the wheelchair and after, you know, seeing what I sort of have to do to move it, my dad said to just try it out for the next month or so, and if it's really that hard, we'll just pay out of pocket and replace the wheel. He said that we can manage that, thankfully. They managed to tighten things and replace a lot of the ends of the screws or the bolts or whatever had broken off. 2 of them broke off inside the frame. So they replaced all of that stuff as much as they could. They tuned things up, and it looks pretty beaten up, but I mean, I think they're right. I think it's usable, but they did a good job with what they could do. Actually, because the CareCentrix company hadn't given them the okay to go ahead and look at it, I mean, they weren't supposed to. We were supposed to wait until at least Monday to find out anything, and that was just to get the approval to have it looked at. And the guy came out and was just like, no, I'm not gonna let this wait, which was amazing, especially since it was a 2-hour drive each way. They did confirm that it is completely safe. The frame is a bit shaky. The wheels are slightly loose, not loose enough that it's dangerous, but it's a little bit more rickety than it used to be. So aside from the wheel still being bent inwards slightly, and the frame is slightly bent still, and the fact that it pulls to the left and is kind of shaky and rickety, I mean, it's manageable. It's not bad, so I can live with it. The police officer had been calling us back a few times this last week, and they met with the head of security and loss prevention, and they looked back through all of the footage, and at first they had said they couldn't actually see anything because of the angle it was at, and because my chair is like 2 feet off the ground, and this truck was huge and it was blocking the view, so they didn't actually see the accident happen. But then we were hoping that they could at least maybe track the guy into the store, and if he had made a purchase, they could then backtrack him. They could backtrack it to him and find out who he is and ID him. Long story short, this guy is gonna get away with it, because what happened was not only could they not see the accident happen, but then when they went back and looked at the footage more thoroughly, while they could track him indoors, they had to be able to follow him from outside to indoors, and all the cameras outside were covered in layers of ice because it was like -12 degrees that day, like -20 with wind chill. And they said that even if the ice hadn't been blocking the lens, that the sunlight was hitting it at the wrong angle and they wouldn't have been able to see anything. The police officer was very nice on the phone, he was apologetic, but I mean, I guess it kind of ends here. I'm really pissed, but I'm livid that this guy got away with it. I just want my damn apology. Like, seriously, have a friggin' heart, dude. Like, you crushed my damn wheelchair and drove off. Maybe I should drop it, but I'm pissed. So my family's pretty pissed that he got away with it too. The one tip I have is that if something like that ever occurs, whether it's regular driving on the road or in a parking lot or something, definitely call the police, because I'm the kind of person who, I'm a horrible judge of when it's like severe enough to call the cops. Like, I honestly, if 3 other witnesses hadn't called the police for me before I did, I probably wouldn't have done it, because I have a horrible sense of like when it's serious enough to actually notify the police. But yeah, my tip is that don't question it. Even if you're a little unsure, file a police report, because if something ends up being seriously damaged after the fact, then you are going to be so glad you did, because it's most likely going to be covered. Insurance said we got really lucky, because there was literally no chance in hell that they would have covered any of the repairs at all without the police report. And even with the police report, we had to fight it a lot. I mean, that's my biggest tip, is that if something like this happens, don't question it, and don't be the nice guy. Don't be too lenient. You know, you don't have to be like a horrible jerk about it if you catch the guy, but I mean, I'd say definitely pursue it. Don't just let it go, which is what I usually do, and I'm glad that all the witnesses convinced me to not just let it go, because had that not been covered for the wheelchair, we would have been totally screwed. And again, thank you so much to everybody who has offered to help in any way, shape, or form. It does mean the world to us. And, you know, hopefully the wheelchair doesn't fall apart over the next 3 to 4 months. I mean, not sure what's gonna happen, but because they have the police report on file, it should be covered for the most part. So that's a good thing. I mean, the most frustrating thing about this is just that that he got away. I can't believe he got away. I'm so mad. I don't know how you can do that and just drive away. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a freaking soul. Thank you for being so supportive through all of this. It has really taken its toll on both me and my family. Still really pissed that the police couldn't get anything else on this guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overreacting, but I'm really mad. So I'm gonna go eat some mac and cheese, and that's gonna make me feel better.